Good evening here from Baltimore. We have just finished the afternoon session of the annual conference session of the Baltimore-Washington Conference. So a couple things. One, we're not done. We're going to get to come back tonight. I hope y'all brought snacks. There was just too much business. There was too much work. I'll summarize kind of some of the things that were done to make the work more efficient and go quickly, but they're just, we weren't done. So to get to the end first, we are coming back after ordination. The ordination service had been scheduled for 7 p.m. It's been bumped later to 7:30 because we did go further into the dinner hour. There were no good ways to either go late, lose time, reschedule it. So ordination will be at 7:30. That will be live streamed. So if you're not here with us at annual conference, I hope that you'll check that out online. That is, I think that's my favorite service. It's one of the most powerful services of all of annual conference. So 7:30 p.m. 20 minutes after ordination service ends, the annual conference will reconvene, hopefully to conclude the business of the annual conference. There are a number of reports. The only kind of reports we heard today were that we got to this afternoon were from finance, pensions, and equitable compensation. All of those reports were approved and received as submitted, so we did deal with that. But discipleship report, the conference restructure had been pulled off of the consent calendar, and so we still need to deal with that. And I'm going to talk about delegates. We still need to elect the 4 clergy, 4 lay alternates, and so that's going to need to happen tonight. But let's talk about delegates first. We actually spent a lot of time talking about how we were going to elect the final delegates, and in the end, the bishop, because our conference rules say that the bishop can declare a final ballot in the last hour of conference, so the bishop decided with the affirmation of the annual conference that for the general conference delegates to fill the remaining 2 general conference slots, and then what was, I think, a remaining 3 laity slots for general conference, that we would take a ballot to fill those, a ballot for the 6 jurisdictional, and then a ballot for the 4 alternates. And so for clergy, filling out that, so the first 4 were already elected. So Ianther Mills is the first clergy elected. She'll be the head of the delegation. Joe Daniels, Ginger Gaines Sorelli, Tony Hunt, Giovanni Arroyo, and myself, Sarah Schlieckert, are 6 clergy delegates to general conference. The clergy jurisdictional conference delegates, and the first 2 of these are our 2 general conference alternates. So Stacy Cole Wilson and J.W. Park are the first 2 jurisdictional delegates, and so then our alternates to general conference. And then Leo Yates, Conrad Link, Kirkland Reynolds, and Bryant Osvig fill out our jurisdictional slate. For the laity, the first 3, Cynthia Taylor, Megan Blizzard, Melissa Lauber, were elected earlier ballots. And then filling out those slots, Ken Au, Sarah Ford, and Daniel Colbert. And then for our jurisdictional delegates, and again, the first 2 are alternates to general conference, Chris Schlieckert, Christy Latona. Those are first 2 jurisdictional and alternates to general. Then Tracy Collins, Sherrod Milton, Nathan Jones, and Chet Jachura. And then we'll be electing later tonight, hopefully finish out electing the alternates for jurisdictional conference. And so those are the delegates that are elected, and so that was a lot of work that we were able to get through in terms of delegates. In terms of the resolutions, there was back and forth at various points about trying to untable Resolution 2 that we had dealt with earlier in annual conference, and in the end it was not untabled. It had been tabled, it wasn't untabled, and there was a lot of time spent on that. It didn't get untabled. We had finished in the morning the resolution pertaining to attendance for the delegation. That's Resolution 9. So we picked up at Resolution 10, a resolution to call us back to our Methodist roots. After some discussion on that, the makers pulled that piece, and they will still be submitting it to General Conference, but they will submit it themselves rather than trying to get the annual conference to support it as well. Resolution 11 calling for an adjourned special session of annual conference that was that both our chair of trustees and chair of conference finance had supported, and they just referred that to the bishop. The bishop is able to call a special general conference, so referred that to her to consider calling that session. And then there are a list of resolutions dealing with ministry with LGBTQ persons, and so for each of those, members of the team from Be Warm who had submitted that legislation introduced the bill, and then they pulled each of those didn't have any binding. They were all aspirational, so there was nothing binding on the annual conference. And so the makers of those motions then one by one pulled those and referred them to various conference committees as was appropriate given the topic that they addressed. The last two resolutions, resolution to affiliate with the Western jurisdiction, a substitute motion was offered. That was accepted by the makers of the original motion as the main motion, so we didn't have to go through Rule 22 and trying to deal with substitute motion. But then that legislation was referred
to the
discipleship council. Finally, the last piece that the presenter of Resolution 19, a resolution on the constitutionality of discipline, paragraph 304.3, that really fell prey to the time crunch that we were under, and shortly before we did adjourn, the maker of that motion, Jackson Day, did pull that legislation in the favor of time. So a lot of the makers of the resolutions, unfortunately, we just didn't have time to deal with the resolutions, and so those were dealt with in a variety of different ways. So there are no more resolutions to be dealt with this evening. Again, what we need yet to hear are the discipleship council reports. We're going to need to deal with the restructure, and then there are, I think it's about 10 churches that we need to take action on to close. In I think nearly all of those, it was a voluntary decision of the church. There's a process that has to be followed. All of that has happened, but we do need the action of the annual conference. So that has to happen before the close of annual conference session. So I think that's most of the business that is left. It's a lot. And man, we started at 2:00, and this was just about the longest 3.5 hours of an annual conference session I think I have ever sat in. There was a lot of back and forth, a lot of jumping around between things. Our bishop did a really great job trying to help the annual conference work through it. I think probably everybody left kind of frustrated with how things went, but we did get a lot of work done. We will be reconvening 20 minutes after the close of ordination tonight. The bishop is committed to trying to have us get our work done tonight so that we can really preserve our time tomorrow for the young people's ministry presentation and our confirmation celebration. And so we'll see. Hopefully we'll be able to be efficient and get things done this evening. But again, we'll be reconvening 20 minutes after the close of ordination, and ordination has been bumped a half hour later. It now will begin at 7:30 instead of 7 p.m. So I'll update tonight after we have session to give hopefully a final summary. Hopefully we're able to get our work done. And I hope that if you're here at annual conference that you're able to get a quick bite, and we will be gathering again in order to celebrate the commissioning and ordination of our newest class of provisional and full member elders and deacons. Thanks.